Welcome to MandoLessons Live, Episode 5. Looks like there's already some people here. Thanks for joining us. I'm trying out some new video stuff today. I'm trying a higher quality. Let me know if it's really not working, and I'll shut down and switch back to the old setup. But I have faster internet now, which I just realized 5 minutes ago, and figured I'd try bumping up the quality for you. But welcome anyway, regardless. Hope it's coming through. So, yeah. If you haven't been here before, okay, never mind. If you haven't been here before, the way these things work is I play some tunes, you guys ask some questions, I'll answer them to the best of my ability. I love hearing what everybody's working on, what people are excited about. I hope you all had good holiday seasons and are ready for a new year. 2018 right around the corner. And yeah, so I got a question right off the bat from, I know I saw it in here somewhere. Andrew says, do I have any F-style mandolins? I do not. Nothing wrong with an F-style. I just kind of prefer A-styles. They're often more in my budget range. You know, F-styles from like a similar maker and kind of similar design appointments usually run about twice as much as A-style mandolins. And my personal view is there's often more kind of variance in the sound of a mandolin. You know, even if I have two mandolins exactly like this that are both A-styles, there's going to be more sound difference between those two than I've heard, than kind of going from an A-style to an F-style of a similar maker. Opinions on that vary. That's just sort of my thought on the way that I've kind of heard things and played things. So A-styles are often cheaper, and assuming it's, you know, they're kind of the same. A lot of it's the same quality and sound, not exact, to a similar F-style by the same maker and same kind of build. Yeah, I've got, let's see here. Cool. Got a couple New Year's well wishes. Thank you, everybody. John Hardy. Yeah, I could probably kind of fake my way through John Hardy. Just so I don't get ahead of myself here, first tune that I played, what was that? I can't remember the name of the tune. I had it in my head when I started, but it's gone now. I know it's on my website. I'll try to look it up here and see if I can come up with it. It's a great tune. What is it called? It's like, I'm going to use my own website here for a second so I can tell you what, unless somebody can beat me to it and tell me what it's called there. Bill Cheatham. I see somebody's been working on that. That's a great tune. Where's the old time section? Oh, there's a lot of them. Oh no, what is the name of this? Hollow Poplar. There it is. I was thinking Happy Hollow, which is not the tune. First tune I played there, called Hollow Poplar, a great old time tune. One of my favorites. Yeah, so let's see. John Hardy's great song. Hardy was a little man. I don't know the words, but I'll kind of sing the melody and play some chords, and then play a little break on that. Not too fast here. John Hardy was just a little man. Great song. I wish I knew more of the words. All I know is it starts, John Hardy was a something. But, yeah, great song. That's a great one to just kind of work on, just going through the melody. Great song. I love that melody. Big Rock Candy Mountain. I don't know enough of that one to really have a go at. I also know that one's copyrighted, and I'm steering away from copyrighted material until I can really work out all the kinks, but that's coming. That's one of my plans for 2018, is to really get a handle on how to work with copyrighted material so I can put out stuff that I get a lot of requests for. But that's a great song. If you're not familiar with it, check out Big Rock Candy Mountains. Wonderful old song. I forget who it was written by, but it was written by a fellow back in, I think, the 20s. Or at least he's got it's sort of attributed to him. If I remember correct, I could be wrong about that. From Gregory Refner, question: any recommendations for working on improving solos without someone there to back me up? Yeah. One thing is just to kind of play along with recordings. What I really like to do, I can't think of any off the top of my head right now, but if you can find a recording of a group that maybe doesn't have a mandolin player in the group, that's a great space to sort of try to fill that role. If you can find a group that's like a guitar and a banjo, or a guitar and a fiddle. There's also some play-along track websites. If you look up like bluegrass backing tracks or bluegrass play-along tracks, there's a couple websites out there that have some options. If you're looking for tunes in particular, or some of the tunes on my website that you think might work well with playing along, you can always find the play-along tracks to all of my fiddle tune lessons over at the website. But yeah, I've been working on playing clawhammer banjo, and I found an album that's a guitar player and a fiddle player, and then I try to learn some of those tunes so I can kind of try to fill that role. Because so much of it, like you said, it's hard without someone there to back you up. Or if you're trying to play when there's another mandolin player, it can be hard to somebody said handsome little man. That's the John Hardy words I was looking for. But trying to find the right recording to really play along with is kind of a game in itself, just to kind of find the right thing that fits what you're gonna play along with. I grew up playing along with the pizza tapes. I really liked the David Grisman, Jerry Garcia, Tony Rice sitting around playing a bunch of old songs. And I just played right over David Grisman. It's a shame because he's playing so great on that album. But really, whatever you can get excited about, and if you have to play over somebody because they're filling in where you want to practice, just kind of do your best to not get distracted by what they're doing on the recording. Things like that. Yeah, I think I can. I can at least get the A part of going back to Old Kentucky. I can't remember. That's a request from the Pelican 3. I can't remember if you requested that last week or recently, or somebody else did. A great recording on Bluegrass Mandolin Extravaganza of this song. It's just kind of played the melody. I'm going back to Old Kentucky. Sam Bush on the mandolin. Del McCurry playing amazing backup guitar. And it's great. I'll play a little bit, kind of inspired by Sam. I can't remember all of it, but I'll see how much I can get through. It's not exactly how Sam plays it, but I might be kind of stealing the feeling from that recording. Great tune. I think they do it in A. forget if there's a B part to that or not. But awesome melody. Check out Sam Bush playing that on the Bluegrass Mandolin Extravaganza CD. A lot of great mandolin on that record. Brendan Tierney asked, do you learn music using sheet music or by ear? Mostly by ear. I can read sheet music if I'm forced to at this point. I've done more reading in the past. When I was in college, I read a lot more than I do now. But at this point, I spend most of my time kind of learning things by ear. I've worked on some jazz and some classical stuff that I've read in the past. I think I've maybe learned one or two tunes my entire life by reading kind of traditional fiddle tunes from reading sheet music, and a couple by tab. When I first started learning, I learned how to read tablature, and honestly, tablature can be helpful. I always recommend that people learn to read standard notation over tablature, just because it's a much more versatile way to read music. If you can read sheet music on the mandolin, standard notation, and then you pick up a flute or some other instrument that you play or need to show it to someone else, they'll be able to read that music. Versus if you hand a flute player a bunch of mandolin tablature, it's not going to mean anything to them. And if you're handed sheet music, you're more likely to be handed sheet music, standard notation, than tablature, because it's sort of the universal musical language. Well, not universal, but universal to Western music anyway. I just want to make sure I didn't miss anything here in the chat, and then I'll play another song or answer more questions. I guess another thing I sort of stopped in the middle of my thoughts on Gregory's question about working on improving solos. I think another thing you can do, I think having someone there to play along with you is helpful because it keeps you from getting lost. At the same time, I think getting used to playing and sort of keeping the form of the song or the tune in your head can be really helpful, so you're not as dependent on. If you can kind of pretend to have somebody going, have a guitar player going in your head, that can be a helpful thing. And a good way to work on that is to just stick to the melody until you're really comfortable with the form. So, if the song is like I was doing with John Hardy. Sticking to the melody. And then from there, maybe do a little, like one line of melody, and then one line of more kind of improvisation. Then back to melody. And then improv. So kind of going back and forth, doing one kind of line or one measure of melody and then switching to harmony. It makes it a little harder, or switching to more kind of out there improvisation. It allows you to work on improvising while still kind of sticking to the melody and having that form getting stuck in your head, versus just going off into the stratosphere with improvisation and then kind of getting lost. Forcing yourself to play a little bit of melody can be helpful. Cool. Just gonna catch up with the chat again. Cool. We've got 63 JEF. Has been new to the mandolin. You're going out of an hour a day. That's great. That's a good amount of time. Keep up the good work. And cool. French guitar player for 40 years. Awesome. I love music from France. Maybe I'll play some French tunes. Sean asks, any thought on rest strokes, especially ones followed by upstrokes on the string you come to rest on? I don't know if I have any. I know what you're talking about. I don't know if I have any thoughts. I'll try to get the mandolin up to sort of show people what we're talking about here. So if we say the melody line is something like that. So on the D string, 0, 2, 4, and then up. It would be up on the 8. It would be down, up. Or 0, 2, 4, 0 on the A string. And what I'm doing, a rest stroke is when you go through the D string and kind of come to rest on the A string. So it's kind of a way of following through. So close up, the pick looks like this. So hopefully you can see that a little bit. My pick's just kind of coming to rest on that A string. So I think what I would do in that situation is something like this. Ah, see. I think maybe what I do, it's not a very good answer. What I do is I don't tend to, I do a lot of rest strokes where, you know, I do a lot of that follow through. But I think I would avoid that rest stroke on, if you know you're going to be coming back up. You kind of have to because you can use that energy of the downstroke before it to kind of skip that rest stroke and let your hand follow through even farther, and then come back up on the A. I hope that is helpful. What are situations when you might use, from Christopher Mallow, what are situations you might use pull-offs and hammer-ons in? I'm getting how to do them, just not when. Great question. I found myself, I don't tend to do a whole lot of hammer-ons and pull-offs, but I was finding myself using them. I was kind of surprising myself by using them in that first tune that I played, Hollow Poplar. So right there. I'll do that again. So I guess when I'm using them is when I want kind of a smooth, sort of bubbly sound. I could do that all with pick strokes. But I find it's a little kind of harsher than I want that sound to be. You can be a little more subtle with pull-offs. So in those situations, I was using them as triplets. Triplet. Kind of in place of triplets, you can kind of triplet up. Things like that, I guess, is where I use them. I think what I recommend with new techniques is try to use them everywhere. Throw them in any conceivable spot that you can. And it's not going to sound good, probably more than half the time. You're going to be like, ooh, that's not good, it doesn't work, it doesn't sound good, whatever the problem is. But what it does is it's teaching you, like, oh, it doesn't work there, oh, it does work there. Things like that. And then from there you can kind of pare it back and say, I know it's not going to work here, I know it's not going to work there. And it's sort of, you kind of need to enter the zone of poor taste when it comes to like learning new techniques. Like you learn a new thing to do and just try it all the time. Maybe more when you're just practicing on your own versus going out to a jam and really going for it all the time. That can be a little overwhelming to people around you. But give it a shot while you're at home. Just do it a lot and sort of pare back and find out when it doesn't work. All right, I hope that's helpful. Somebody says, let's see. So 2 Left Feet says you said you've been listening to Caleb Clotter. Love his playing. Can you give any tips about his style? Yeah. So Caleb Clotter, if you're not familiar with him, is an awesome mandolin player who plays in Foghorn String Band and Caleb Clotter Country Band, and kind of his duo with Reeb Willems. There's a great interview that I just read, and I'd read a while ago, but on mandolin. If you look up Caleb Clotter interview, I don't know if it's Clouder. I don't know how to say his last name. But it's on Mandolin Cafe, but you can just search his name and then interview, and it'll pop up. And he talks a little bit about his own playing style, so that's sort of right from the source. Hard to go wrong there. But also, I think things that I've noticed about his playing, it's fairly informed by kind of Monroe style. He does a lot of double stops. He also, one thing that he really does, which I really appreciate, is he almost always just plays the melody. You listen to his breaks on his recordings and in YouTube videos you can find, and a lot of the time he's just playing the melody of the tune that he's singing, and adding in double stops. So kind of, if I was to do John Hardy in his style, I mean, I think I was sort of doing that already. If you were to take a break over John Hardy, I don't know, I can't say for sure, but I think you would do something along the lines of... I think maybe what he does, when I was doing that and thinking a little more specifically about his playing, he tends to condense it to two sets of strings. Sometimes I'll get a little more open string with it and kind of get more strings ringing. He's a little more condensed in his playing. A little more minimalistic, which is nice. And he really does kind of often go for like kind of straight eighth notes. Etc. That's sort of my own take. I need to do a lot more listening to him to really have a better sense of his style, but that's one thing that I see in his playing. But he's really one of my favorite mandolin players lately. He goes into some of his own styles in that interview nicely, kind of talking about imitating clawhammer banjo players and all sorts of cool stuff. Cool, yeah. All right, more questions here. Okay, so TN Mando says iRealBook Pro is an app for playing along with chord changes. You can change the key and time signatures. Change tempo, key, time signatures, create your own, or download from online, or from a forum maybe. That sounds great, yeah. You know, anything where you can sort of create, if you can figure out what the chord progression is of the bluegrass song or folk song or whatever song you're hoping to play over, that sounds like it could be very helpful. And it'll also teach you sort of to recognize those chord changes, which is a big part of kind of learning to play over them, I think. The Pelican 3 asked, can you do Snowflake Reel? I cannot. Not off the top of my head. I may have heard it, but it's not in my immediate repertoire. Blue Moon of Kentucky from 63 JEF. I'm going to stay away from that one because I know that's a copyrighted tune. That's a Bill Monroe tune. Still working on the copyright thing. Great song. Highly recommended. Check it out if you're not familiar with it, to anyone that may not have heard that song. But that's a good one. Let's see. So J Doe Bud, apologies with the screen name there, says, could you talk about choking up on the pick and the pick length that falls through the strings used in tremolo versus chord and melody playing? Yeah, so I think what Jay is talking about here, I'll try to zoom in, is kind of how much pick is going through the strings when you're playing. So is it a very little amount? Let's see. Or a lot? Kind of how much of that pick is going through the strings, where you're choking up on it with your fingers. I always tend to play around like that. I don't know if that's super easy to see. But, so I play fairly choked up on it. I don't let a whole lot. I don't know. I'd say maybe I have like I kind of play a medium distance. I don't have a whole lot to compare it to. But that's definitely one variable to play with, you know, especially with tremolo. If you kind of, one of my friends describes it as like using a push broom on a concrete floor. It doesn't make sense to really like push down into the floor to sweep a floor. You're just kind of sweeping across the top. There's no need to really like put too much pressure down into it. A little bit, but you know, you can play around with just kind of lightly. Light versus gets a little more choppy, especially with tremolo. When you start digging in a little bit more. So yeah, definitely play around with that. It's all good. You know, you just get different sounds, and whatever you're doing, as long as you're nice and relaxed, is great. Let's see. Any idea on octave mandolin? The frets further apart? This is from the Little Muddy Farm. Yeah, octave mandolins are super fun. I've got one. I don't have it out today. I've pulled it out in the past. Scale length is kind of twice as long, pretty much. So you end up using guitar fingering. For mandolin, it's kind of 2 frets per finger. So you kind of that. But because the frets are so far apart, you can use 1 fret per finger. So the scale length is bigger, but it looks more like this. That's hard. But they're super fun, a great sound, nice rich low mandolin-y sound. I really love octave mandolins. I play a lot of tenor guitar, which is a 4-string guitar that I tune more or less like a mandolin. I tune it G, D, A, D, so a high D instead of an E, bring the E string down a whole step. A lot of fun. I do a lot of backup for fiddle players that way. Angelo asks, are your strings also so hard as mine? I think maybe, I don't know exactly what you mean, but I think a lot of people coming to mandolin often from another instrument, or even as not having played another instrument. Mandolins have a lot of string tension. There's a lot of tension going on in the strings, and there's 2 of them that you have to push down at the same time. So you build up calluses, and it can be uncomfortable to play for a little while, for a couple months while you're getting used to it. But once your fingers get used to it, you won't think about it anymore. But yeah, it is kind of a high tension, hard to press down instrument. But I think you'll get used to it the more time you put into it. I'll take a quick little break here and play I've got this French tune in my head since I've forgotten. Oh no, I've forgotten who was talking about being a French guitar player. But 63 JEF is the French guitar player. I'll play a tune that I learned from a guitar and accordion duo. I'm not gonna be. I don't know how to pronounce their names, but what is his name? It's Desané and Le Bico, I guess. Are a French guitar and accordion player who made a great album called Tunes for America. I don't know if it's available online. It was kind of a cassette that they made when they came and did some touring in America. I think back in the 80s. But they did some great, really beautiful French music. I'll play a schottisch that I learned off of their album. How does this go? And they go to another one that's also beautiful. But yeah, I don't know the names of that tune, the name of that tune, or the name of the one that comes after it. They're just labeled as schottisches or schottisch, depending on where you're from and how you want to pronounce it. But those are some of my favorite tunes of all time. All right, back to some questions here. Let's see. How can you incorporate pentatonic scales into bluegrass from the Pelican 3? I think the way that I think about, rather than thinking about pentatonic scales for the most part, what I really think about is if you have a chord progression that's maybe going G for 4, C for 4, D for 4, G for 4. I think maybe what can be more helpful, especially to play kind of in the bluegrass tradition, is really think in terms of the key that you're playing in. So if you got 4 strums of G, 4 a C, 4 a D, 4 a G, you can kind of just play G scale, C scale, D scale, G scale. So I hope that makes sense. Kind of, you're not exactly playing full C scale. You're kind of starting. If you know you're coming to a C chord in the key of G, try to land on that C. That's a good exercise. You can play arpeggios. You can play scales. You can do a little bit of pentatonic. But in a pentatonic scale, there's no. So a pentatonic scale would be G, A, B, D, E, G. So you don't have a C. And a C is an important note if you're coming to a C chord in the key of G. So I think starting to think about landing notes rather than straight pentatonics can be helpful. So here comes that C chord, D chord, G chord. So I hope that is helpful. Kind of, if you know there's a C chord coming, try to land on a C. You can also land on a G or an E, but kind of one of the notes in the chord of G. Try to look for these landing tones and try to figure out a nice melodic way to get there. So if your chords are going G, G, C, C, D, G. I think kind of the notion, and it's a really common notion that pentatonics can just be something that you play over a chord progression, and for the most part you can. I think what you do lose, though, is those other notes can be really helpful. That in the key of G, for example, you don't have a C or an F sharp in a pentatonic scale. And the C is a really important note when you get to a C chord in the key of G, and the F sharp is a really important note when you get to the chord of D in a G scale. Cool, so I'll move on here. I hope that's helpful. Solo to Pig in a Pen. I can't pull that one off the top of my head right now. Apologies. I'll keep thinking on it in case it pops in, though. Christopher Mallow says, speaking of strings, what strings do you prefer? And is that a blue chip pick? I use, and again, I have this in the description. I don't endorse anyone. I don't get sponsorships. I'm not paid to talk about gear at all or use particular gear. I use D'Addario. I don't know how to say their name. I recommend people use J74s. They're commonly available, readily available in most music shops. They're great strings. I think they're now called EJ74s. They put an E at the beginning for some reason. Still stuck in the past, though, here. I use J75s or EJ75s. It's a little heavier gauge string just because I tend to play a little harder than most people. And it sort of allows me to play harder through the instrument and not have the instrument kind of react poorly to my kind of harder playing style. But I think J74s are a great place to start. So I've got 75s on this. I have 74s on, I don't think you can quite see it in the frame. Oh, you can just see the very bottom of it there. I've got an old Gibson oval hole that I use 74s on because it's an older, kind of lighter built instrument. It doesn't need 75s. I don't play it that hard. And this is not a blue chip. I used to use blue chips, but this is a Dunlop Prime Tone, 1.5 millimeter. It's a big triangle, the brown one. They also make some clear ones that I don't like as well. But I really like these picks. I used to use blue chips. This is kind of very similar to a blue chip around a 55. I used to use the CT55, or they also make a 60 that's about this size. It's 1.5 millimeter, I think, is the gauge. But these cost essentially $2. It's like $6 for a pack of 3, so they're like $2 each versus 30 something for a blue chip. So I actually sold all my blue chips and bought a bunch of these and don't feel so bad when I lose them. Yeah, that's what I'm using at this point. I use a thinner. I just use kind of Fender heavy gauge normal guitar picks when I play other mandolins or guitars. I really think spending a little bit of time and a couple bucks trying out different sets of strings and different picks on your instrument just to see what reacts the best to your playing style and how the instrument is built. Pretty inexpensive way to do a little experimentation. Yellow Rose Farm says, my mandolin strings keep breaking near the tailpiece. Do you have any tips on keeping them from doing so? Down here, that's an interesting spot for strings to break. I mean, I guess what I would, whenever I break a string, I always look at where it breaks. So it's good that you've found it's near the tailpiece. I don't know. There could be something sharp on the tailpiece, or something that's kind of rubbing against the strings down there. I don't know exactly what it is. I can't tell without really looking at the instrument. But take a look at where they're breaking. See if there's anything sharp down there. Sometimes they'll break over the bridge, and it's because there's a sharp spot in the bridge slots. Same thing up here at the nut. Any number of places that strings can break. But usually looking into that, you can find something sharp, or sometimes with, like, if your strings are old, or if they're kind of an off-brand that you haven't heard of, or maybe some strings are cheaply made that I've just, like, taken them out of the package and tried to tune them up and they just break. But if it's consistently in the same spot, I would look for a sharp spot around where they're breaking. Cool. Yellow Rose says, I learned Cripple Creek from you. Cool. A great tune. I'm glad you're enjoying picking. Can I put it from Ben Dixon? Can I put out an advanced version of your PDFs for tunes that include some double stops, etc.? Yeah, that's something that I do want to do in the coming year, is do some more advanced lessons. What I do have in the technique and fundamentals section of my website is I have lessons on adding double stops to your playing, and really kind of my main goal is to get you to be able to kind of think up some double stops on your own. So I have a 4-lesson series on kind of how I approach adding double stops to tunes using, it doesn't require much theory really, it's just kind of using some open strings and then putting fingers down here and there and thinking about some chord shapes can really get you a long way. And once you learn, what I recommend for people looking into really adding some double stops into their playing. Oh, apologies if it's been cutting out. It looks like I've dropped a couple frames here. But I think one thing that's been big for me is if you learn, like if you're working on adding double stops into tunes, finding some tunes that don't have too many notes in them, so they've got some space for you to add those double stops and kind of partial chords. And then learn a couple tunes in the same key. So learn a half dozen G tunes. You know, I think old time is a great place to start working on double stops because they're often less notey. Irish tunes are a lot of kind of straight eighth notes all the way through. Old time tunes often have more space in them that makes it easier to throw in chords and double stops. And so learn a half dozen old time tunes in the key of G and stick to one key for a little while just to get your fingers used to some chord shapes. I think that'll can really help people out learning how to get double stops under their fingers for tunes that they don't necessarily have a written out sheet for. But it is something that I do want to work on, doing those sort of lessons in the new year. Oh, Ryan McGinnis, thank you for the super chat. Little donation. I really appreciate it, and has a request for Irish Washerwoman. I am happy to oblige, especially if I can remember how it goes. There it is. Great Irish tune. I've got a lesson for it on my website. Irish jig in the key of G. washerwoman. Great Irish jig. Glad to oblige. You got a lot of great tunes where you come from. Thanks for joining us today. Duda Dada says, "What mic do I use?" I'm right now. I'm using It's an Audio Technica. I think it's called AT2020 USB. It's a mic that just plugs right into my computer. It's the same mic I use for my play-along tracks. And when I'm using when I'm making my lessons, I just use, I don't know where it is right now, but I have a Zoom H1 little recorder that I put on a stick. Just one, kind of space it evenly between my mandolin and my voice. Yeah, and that's about it. So this for play-along tracks and live sessions, and then the Zoom for the lessons themselves. If you are in the key of G, what is a good D turnaround lick? Well, kind of one that I really like. So if we're in the key of G going... I really like that. It's kind of the classic bluegrass bluesy lick. So it starts on the 5th fret of the A string, and then to the 3rd fret of the A string, and then slide 1 to 2, and then end on the 5th fret of the D string, which is your G, and it becomes 5 5 5 5 5 3 1 2 5 on the D string. So and then once you're back to G, you can do something like that. 5 3 2 0 3 4 open. Apologies, I can see I'm dropping some frames. I might have been a little too hopeful on setting up today's thing, so I hope I'm not losing too much of the information here. What's the leather above your mandolin nut for? So this is I was getting some. If you do that, you can hear it. If that's not there, these are really ringy. You can really get some kind of exciting sound out of them. And I was having some kind of resonant frequency it was making some weird ringing and buzzing one day, so I just stuck that under there, and I've forgotten to take it out, so it's just kind of lived there forever. I often do that below the bridge too. On this, it's kind of hidden. There's some little plastic grommets or rubber grommets down here that do the damping down there. And I usually either stick a piece of leather or a piece of string below and above most of my strung instruments. I guess on guitar, not below the bridge, or not below the saddle, but above the nut. Just kind of helps get some of those rings out and focuses the sound down a little bit. Could I play either Cripple Creek or Turkey in the Straw? Absolutely. Let's see. I was thinking about Turkey in the Straw the other day. I'll play that. Turkey in the Straw. I don't know if that's on my website or not. If it's not, I should do it. We'll look into that real quick. Come on. Yeah, that's a great... I was thinking about that tune the other day. I hadn't played it in a while, but that's a good one. Is Turkey in the Straw on my website? Maybe somebody can tell me before I can... There it is. Yep, it's on there. Cool. Enist TV requests Irish Washerwoman. I actually just played Irish Washerwoman. I may hold off. We've got about 5 minutes left, but I'll hold off today, maybe next time. But if you want to, you can watch back to about, I'd say maybe 10 or 15 minutes ago. Once this video will be up for people to watch anytime. After this session's done, it takes 10 minutes to kind of get processed by YouTube, but then it'll be up and you can watch back and watch me play Irish Washerwoman. Christopher says, Little Muddy Farm says, what was the tag at the end of Turkey in the Straw? I can't remember anymore, but it was something like, something like that. I'll play it a little slower. I can't remember exactly what I did, but it was something like that. Just a little kind of bluesy tag at the end. Christopher asks, bought your solo album a while back and enjoy it. So I made an old-time solo mandolin old-time album that you can... I think there might be a link in the description. There's not a link in the description, but if you go to MandoLessons.com, there's a shop or there's a something link at the top of the page, and you can find my album. You can listen to it on Bandcamp and download it if you choose to. And Christopher's wondering if I have plans to do another. I do have plans. Not another old-time one yet, but I do want to make probably the next one I'll make is an Irish album. I don't know exactly when it'll happen, but it's on my list. I'm looking forward to making it when the time comes. And yeah, that's I'm looking forward to doing that. I've got some ideas on a little sheet written down of tunes I want to do, and hopefully I can find some time to do it. Let's see here. 63JEF is asking, how can I do a donation? Honestly, I don't know exactly. It's called Super Chat. I think there should be a little... I don't know if you have to like do some signing up with YouTube to make it happen. There should be a little like kind of dollar sign below the chat. People can always also donate at MandoLessons.com. There's a little donate button on the upper left-hand side. That's equally as appreciated. That said, it's all free, so totally voluntary, but appreciated all the same. If I should wander back tonight, that one's not going to come into my head right now, unfortunately. I'm bad at pulling out those great old bluegrass classics. That's a goal for 2018, kind of a personal goal, is learn some more bluegrass classics and just great old country songs in general. Work on some singing. Pig in a Pen solo lesson. Yeah, that would be great. I would like to do that. I gotta check in, as always. I gotta check on the copyright situation on that one. I assume it's under copyright, but something to look into once the first of the year rolls around. Got a request to play 8th of January. That's actually on my old-time album, and I'll play it now. You might recognize it as the melody to Battle of New Orleans. 1813 took a little trip. The melody for that song was taken from a fiddle tune called The 8th of January, and it sounds like this. That's one of my favorite tunes. Kind of a classic old time tune. I love that one. Cool. Well, I think it's about time, unfortunately, that I call it a day. I got some errands I got to run right at 1, and that time has come. I wish I had time to keep doing requests and answering questions, but this will happen next week at same time, 12 noon on Saturday, Eastern Standard Time. Happy New Year to everyone. Thank you so much for joining in today and watching in general, and keep on picking. It's a lot of fun. It's not worth stopping. So that is a humidifier in the background. It's the high. I'm up in Maine, and the high temperature for like the 2-week stretch is like 5 degrees, and it's getting down to like -15 at night. So the air is super dry, hence the humidifier, trying to keep the instruments and my lungs in order. But thank you again, everyone, for joining in. Have a great and happy New Year, and see you next week. Alrighty, have a good one. Thanks for joining. Bye-bye.